I'm your host, Jim McLean. Welcome back to another episode of More Than Pixels on a Screen, a podcast brought to you by the Banterflix movie review website. This week, we're going to be talking about Shazam, Fury of the Gods. We will be talking about the film in spoilerific detail, so if you haven't seen it and you don't want it spoiled, maybe wait until you've seen the film, and then you can kind of join in on this post-pub cinematic discussion. Joining me on this recording, it's the first time we've had him on this pod in the new format. It's Banterflix's master storyteller, Darren Vincent.
Hi Jim, how are you doing? Thanks for inviting me on. It's good to be back in the new format, and certainly after seeing Shazam, I definitely needed to go to a very good pub. Considering St. Patrick's Day was only last week, I feel like I probably should have went on that day, or maybe even before seeing this film, but I digress. We'll get stuck in.
This is what we do, Darren. It's perfectly fine to have a digression on this podcast. We're trying to get better. We promise you, listeners, we aren't trying to avoid going down Inception-esque tangents, and we wait for someone to go, but wait, whose tangent are we in now? We're not allowing ourselves to do that. No. But before we start, did you have a good St. Patrick's Day? Yes,
it was good. Unfortunately, I had to work, but I kept up with the celebrations and
whilst at work.
Whilst at work, yeah. So we all wore green. We all dressed up. We had a bit of crack in work, and a great story there from my sister over the weekend. She took my
whoa, hang on. We're not even a minute in, and already you're going to bring us a story.
Yes. So okay,
hang on. Darren Vincent, master storyteller, take it away.
Yes. So
also, what did we say about tangents? There we go. Let's just 2 minutes into Darren returning to the pod. It's out the window.
Couldn't wait.
But anyway, apologies
about this, but my nephew Adam, he's just turned 5, and he loved the St. Patrick's Day parade so much that on his way home, he asked his mum, "When I'm big, do I still get called Adam?" And she says, "No." "Well, yes, Adam, that's your name for life. Why do you want a new name?" And he says, "I want to be called Paddy." Aww. So he's picked a new name because he's seen a day dedicated to people called Patrick or St. Patrick. And
he's just heard a lot of those old, outdated Paddy the Englishman, Paddy the Scotsman, Paddy the Irish, and he just wants to be that part of that joke.
Yeah, maybe, or to change the format, or what's the word I'm thinking of, to switch it up a bit, fix it, maybe rewrite the stereotype. Who knows?
Well, who knows? He can get called whatever he wants. If he wants to get called Paddy, it's perfectly fine. So there you go. And in years to come, you can play this little tangent of this pod back, and you can go, there you go. Remember that time you wanted to be called Paddy? Yes. Yeah, okay. Totally. So, look, we are going to be controlled, even though we've clearly within 2 minutes not been controlled. Yeah. So, as we say, we're going to be talking about Shazam. I feel like I'm not saying it right. I have to say it. Shazam. Shazam, Fury of Gods. Shazam, Fury of the Gods. We're going to be talking about that. As I said, we're going to be talking about it in spoilerific detail. So, if you haven't seen it, maybe not give this a listen. You've heard Darren's stories. I'm sure there'll be more throughout this pod, and there'll be more to come. But, yeah, we're going to be talking about the film. So, I think without any further ado, let's play a clip.
Okay, look, I might not have as much experience as you because I'm not, super old like you. But I think I have a few experiences that you don't have. Because I've seen all of the Fast and the Furious movies, lady. And let me tell you something. It's all about family! Family! Guys, that was a signal. We practiced this 12 times. Thank you. Forgot all about my family, didn't you, goddess?
So that's a clip of the film. Darren, before we kind of talk about the sequel, generally, were you a fan? And I'm gesticulating wildly with my hands. It's an audio medium. Nobody can see it. Maybe they can hear my arms flap. I don't know. But were you a fan of the first film?
I have to say yes. I was pleasantly surprised by the first film. Now, this is coming from me watching the rest of the sort of DC Universe films, like of Wonder Woman, Justice League, Aquaman, these big blockbuster films that they built up, and I was just very sort of I wasn't expecting anything from it, but I think I got to go see a preview of it. I think it was one of the cinemas was doing a 3-week in advance screener, and I thought, you know what, that's something new. I'll go check it out. I was I was really happy that I went. It just had all the right elements of a sort of misfit, sort of family comedy, something that was a bit different. There was a great sort of humor between the younger Billy Batson and when he turned into Shazam, as you're calling it.
Shazam.
That sort of, it just reminds me of Bo Selecta when you do that.
That's where it's coming from.
I'll expect Neiman Holmes to make an appearance, but yeah, I was hoping that they would have brought that into the sequel. Not so much. Maybe the magic has sort of worn off, or maybe it's because there's been such a gap between the two films. But certainly I enjoyed the first one more so than the first of any of the other DC Universe entries.
Yeah, we'll talk more specifically about the sequel in a moment. Like you, I really enjoyed the first film. 2019, just looking at here at IMDb, of course we had Zachary Levi, we had Mark Strong as the villain. From someone who doesn't like horror, and we've talked about this in previous pods and the TV shows, there was elements of Shazam, as lighthearted as it was, and it pretty much was, what if Big was a superhero? That idea of the kid who becomes a superhero, he has this idea of what the costume is going to be like and kind of goes around charging people's phones and, you know, trying to learn to fly. There was a lot of humour, and you put it in context, like you've alluded to. You think about what DC was doing at that time. It was very serious, ultra serious. We had Batman plotting to kill Superman. Okay, I'll maybe counter that by saying we had Wonder Woman, which was much lighter in its context. More of Wonder Woman in a moment, listeners, in regards to this film. But it was just something that was so different from what DC were doing. I would almost say it's kind of almost Kick-Ass-esque in the sense that it wasn't afraid to poke fun at itself, wasn't afraid to poke fun at the DC universe. Okay, it had that terrible kind of cameo that's not a cameo of Henry Cavill, because now it's kind of scary to think, like, even back here in 2019, it was like, will Henry Cavill be back as Superman? I don't know. Will he? Won't he? And this originally was meant to be a film that was meant to answer that, and it didn't. And they kind of... Sorry, I know we're going to be talking about the sequel, but if you remember, it's been a while. He shows up at the end in the canteen with Billy's younger friend, and it's just his chest. You really see... And they kind of do this again with Wonder Woman in the sequel. We'll come back to more of that. But yeah, I really like. I think it's Asher Angel, I think, plays the young Billy. He's the actor there. I think he's great. This is kind of probably going to hint at one of my big problems with the sequel. They got the balance much better of the young Billy and Zachary Levi as the older Shazam character. Much better. And of course, we see the whole Shazam family kind of appearing to kind of counter up. I was going to say Doctor Strange, but it's not Doctor Strange. It's Dr. Savannah in the first film with Mark Strong. So I really liked that. I went in with not high expectations for the sequel, but I went in thinking this could be fun. Because again, I'm trying to think, we've had the Black Adam film. I don't know, did you see Black Adam?
Yeah.
Okay, and that kind of is a similar vein, similar kind of, it's kind of DC. Oh, I hate kind of going into kind of MCU terms, but it's kind of like the magic side of DC with kind of this character, because Black Adam, like Shazam, he gets to say Shazam and he turns into Black Adam. I wasn't a massive fan of that film.
No, me neither.
But putting it back into, we've mentioned Henry Cavill, it at least got a proper cameo by Henry.
Yeah.
Possibly, maybe, we don't know, might be his last ever appearance as Kal-El. We don't know. I know James Gunn definitely has gone down a new way, but they have said, the option's still there in the future for Henry to maybe kind of reappear, but right now we want to do something different. So, yeah, we had Black Adam last year. I wasn't a fan. I thought this might be something. Again, it's a little bit fun. I have to admit, I was really disappointed. You've kind of alluded to that when you were talking about the first film, so I'm guessing you're disappointed by this.
Exactly, and you touched on it before by saying there's that disconnect. It just seems it never really seemed to flow. It didn't really take me anywhere. I was a bit underwhelmed by the whole sort of thought of it, and even with the cameos, I just taking that right back and going, right, if you're having to sort of tease a cameo by one of your biggest attractions in, Wonder Woman, and you play that reveal, it's a bit like the Henry Cavill at the end of the first film. If you can't afford to get your biggest star in your own film, what does that say about your casting?
Well, it's weird because we are talking spoilers, so I don't know, would you say about halfway, maybe 15, 20 minutes into the film, there's a tease of a cameo of Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
And it does the same kind of thing as what they did in the first Shazam movie, where it's like we're seeing the outfit and we see her outline and we see everything apart from her face. And I was going, are you doing this again as a nod to what you did with the first film, or is it because you can't get Gal Gadot? And then it becomes really weird, and this was ruined for me because of TikTok. Damn you, China, damn you. Because I don't know about you, I have become someone who is my lovely wife and I, we will sit in bed together and, you know, gone are the days of anything romantic, but we'll just sit and going, oh, have you seen that TikTok?
Yeah.
Oh, have you seen that TikTok? And then you're just scrolling and you go, oh, you've just ruined a key spoiler, a key cameo. At least Banterflix, we give you a little warning.
Yeah.
TikTok doesn't do it. And there's Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. You're like, oh, okay, so she's back. So it's strange in that they have that kind of cameo where it's not her, and then they do kind of have her later on, and it's I can never say his name. It's the wizard, Dijon.
Gimon, is it?
I don't think it's
Hanso?
Dijon. I don't think it's Dijon. 'Cause I think that's a mustard.
Right.
Digimon Hanso, I think, is what I'm going to go with. Apologies if he's listening.
Yeah.
But he then is kind of in the appearance of his face appears in as Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman because it's a dream sequence and it kind of makes sense, but then it's like, oh, I don't know. But I come back to, and you've mentioned it as well, and it's one thing I mentioned straight away, is there's no disconnect. There's no connect between the young Billy and the older Shazam and even the wider family. The only thing that really connects is you've got the actress who plays the oldest character, I think it's Mary, Grace Caroline Curry. She, this time round, is playing both her older self in the Shazam form and her younger self. And I don't know, it's an interesting choice because that wasn't the case the first time round. So I don't know why they've decided to do that second time round. She's the only really thing that connects the two. Some of the older performers, I'm going to look for her name here. Megan Good as the older version of Darla is great. I mean, she provides a lot of the humour. A lot of the humour this time, it didn't land for me with Zachary Levi's character. I mean, he was the heart and soul of the first film.
Yeah.
But I don't know, and it's not that in other cases, like in other DC films, where a character's been lost when you have a big ensemble. I just didn't find myself connecting with his character in the same way as we did in the previous film. But I don't know if that's just a case of sequel and we have to try to do things bigger than what we did before. Now we have not one, not two, well, kind of three villains. We have Helen Mirren, Lucy Liu, and Rachel Ziegler. I was listening to an interview with Rachel Ziegler where she kind of said, look, why did you end up being in this sequel? And she's like, I needed work. So good, honest from our actors when we see them about why they're getting involved in projects. Yeah. I'm not a massive Shazam fan, but I think I'm correct in looking at the fact when I was researching. I do research. Believe you me, listeners, this is me researched. Like Darren has a list in front of him. Darren has proper paper. He's not just 1, 2. He's 3 pages of notes.
Yeah, I was prepared.
You are prepared. I'm just going, I did all my research. I'll wing this.
Yeah.
But
I actually took this into the cinema with me. I sat in, because it's been 6 years or so since the first film was out. I had to look up notes and remind myself who everybody was because the film.
Oh, how can you even? Because I've tried
that.
Have you got like maybe you got a little pen light?
I'm one of those annoying people that just puts the torch on in the cinema, just shines the torch.
I don't know if I can condone that, but I think if I'm correct, these 3 villains, they're created purely for the film. They're not from comic book history, which is, I guess, a good thing in some sense that it allows you more creativity, but I guess it's also a bad sense because it gives you creativity and it allows you to maybe steer away because we all know what comic book fans are like. They're like, why did you do that? That's not my Shazam. I don't know if people are that invested or that emotionally involved with the Shazam character, but I find them fine, but I think it's the performers are doing all the heavy lifting, delivering all the heft, rather than the screenplay, because I think it's rather generic, rather like box-ticking megalomaniac superhero or megalomaniac supervillain. Oh, this is what they want. They want this thing. And once they get, as I said before when we were talking about Ant-Man Quantumania, it's like, this is the thing you want to do, and you want to destroy this, that, and other. What do you do the next day? So they're kind of, for me, they were underwhelming in the sense of the characters and what they wanted to do. But I did enjoy seeing Helen Mirren in a superhero film. And I enjoyed Lucy Liu. I'm going to choose my words carefully, apologies, riding a dragon.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, I know what you mean. And I think for this film, it suffers in that there is no outline of a consequence. You have these villains coming to get this scepter thing that looks like something out of sort of B&M bargains at Halloween. It's a really clunky, wooden, plastic-looking thing.
Do you know what? I just want to throw in, sorry to talk over you, I didn't even realise, other than the fact that the film had to show you that this shaft, this cane, was in the first film. I didn't even remember that from the first one.
No, not at all. And it doesn't explain anything, doesn't explain how it got to where it was. They make a joke about it, but they still don't explain how it travelled the continent. Anyway, they go after that, and then what? They have to bring a bit of exposition in to explain why they did it. And it suffers for me in that I think they don't show us a consequence of that. Once this happens, they're going to do this with it, or they're going to, release a dragon, or the dragon's going to do this. It just seems to happen, and we just have to follow it and go, oh, so that's why they were doing that. That's why they were doing that. I never got a sense of, oh no, they should stop this, because if they don't, this will happen. I didn't know what was going to happen, so I wasn't in any way fearful for what was going to happen. I was just like, I actually wanted to see what happened, to see what they were doing with this scepter. And the family, the what are they called? The Shazamily or something like that. The group. They didn't care, and they were just going along. It was being fed to them in bits, and it was just a bit of a mess. As you said, the screenplay was just written, and they made the most of it, tried to make as many sort of dad jokes and sort of funny bits to keep the audience entertained, and it just sort of fell flat on its end. The final action scene up until, as you said, Lucy Liu on the dragon, it was just, we need something that looks like Game of Thrones. We'll get Lucy Liu up there, have her flying at something.
But there's a charm in that.
Yeah.
There's a charm. I want to put, just because we mentioned Black Adam, I enjoyed this much more than Black Adam.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's because I have some sense of emotional engagement with the characters because I enjoyed the first one and this is a sequel, and it's not a bad film. I have seen poorly made, poorly executed blockbusters and superhero films. I think it's just fine. It feels like a box ticking exercise. First film made X amount of money. We need to have a sequel. This is what they've come up with. As I've said, they've come up with an original villain. The original villain, sorry, it's the Daughters of Atlas, isn't that? The Daughters of Atlas is what they're called. And there's a connection to the first one because the scepter, as you've said, from the first film is there. And I just think it exists because the first film made money, and it never did enough to discourage me to think that there was enough of a story there.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've already alluded to, we have the cameo from Wonder Woman, which we'll come back to, which could prove to be ultimately pointless because that could be Gal Gadot's last outing as Wonder Woman, because no Wonder Woman 3, at currently as we record, is no longer in production. Mm-hmm. The DC Universe is in a state of flux, and I think there's a sense for me. We'll not talk about Flash because the Flash film is using Flashpoint from the comic books, which is clearly, and I think James Gunn has been quite clear about this, they're going to use that as a launch pad for the new going forward with DC. But we've got the Aquaman sequel. We have this. They feel very much like hangovers from the previous regime, which was pretty rudderless, as we've kind of mentioned. It seemed to be, and James Gunn has talked about this. They've tried this and they've tried that, and there didn't seem to be a clear pathway forward. And this is what James Gunn seems to want to come in to do and say, like, I'm going to do a new superhero film. I'm going to do, a new Superman film. I'm going to be a new Batman movie. I think there's a Superwoman, Supergirl movie in the works. Yep. And there's going to be much more serious. I think there's going to be a Green Lantern series. Apologies, listeners, if I'm getting any of these wrong.
Yeah.
But they're going to be much more connected and have a clear strategy of where they want to go. And then they've talked about there are going to be elsewhere projects like the Batman sequel, which is happening with RPAT. That's not going to be connected. Yeah. Although we don't know, this could turn out that they could use Shazam to connect these. And I know we've got the Joker sequel out next year as well. That's not connected to the Batman universe. It's its own thing. Yep. It is a bit confuddled. And this film, I think, feels a bit of a hangover and leftover from the previous ideas. And I don't know. I think it's underwhelmed at the box office, so I don't know if we're going to have a Shazam 3. I come back to my point. I still like the character.
Yeah.
And Zachary Levi, who were you familiar with him anything from?
I'd seen the odd episode of Chuck or whatever that was, the spy show, Chuck. But he's so different to what he was in that show. I would not have, well, he's obviously put weight on, he's sort of bulked up for it, but his character was very similar. But I think in these many notes I have, it mentions that James Gunn said he might keep him on if the sequel does well. And from the reports the first weekend it's pretty bad. So it's worse than Black Adam's second weekend, and it's expected to dip even further. So I don't think it looks good for Zachary Levi.
Why? I know you're not a producer, you're not a generic. I mean, we're having this kind of underwhelming response to the film. Why do you think? Because you look at Ant-Man, Quantumania. Okay, it's MCU. It's been much more structured for a while. Maybe not so in recent years. It's the start of Phase 5. It got pretty crappy reviews, but it's underwhelmed for what it wanted to do, but it still managed to deliver a shitload of money. We have a spoiler. We have an expletive rating. We can say it. It's made a shitload of money for Marvel and for Disney. Mm-hmm. This film, I don't know, I think the reviews again have been lukewarm, but why do you think this film in consideration, or this film hasn't found an audience? In the same way that Black Adam, because Black Adam seemed to be the start of a whole new chapter for DC, and very quickly it was like, it's not going to be. No. It's the ending of something. No. But why do you think there's that sense of audiences? Do you think it's my go-to phrase, superhero fatigue? Do you think it's just this sense of, like we're alluding to, that it seems like, well, this is something that's not, they're not going to go down in 5, 6, there's not going to be a Shazam 3, he's not going to be connected to what they're doing in the future. Why do you think there has been that response from audience that they're not voting with their bums in seats to go see the film?
Well, I think if we strip it back to the basics, and I'm going to upset a lot of comic book fans out here.
Oh, Darren, don't do it, because they get really angry, and they will go.
We're in a secure location. We're here, right? I'm saying it. When I was growing up,
you could get cancelled, Darren.
Yeah, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Dear Mr. Vincent,
can this be edited before it goes out?
No,
it can't. Right, okay, I'll just change my mind then. But no, what I'm saying is, when I was growing up, there was Batman, there was Superman, there was Iron Man, Spider-Man. I'd never heard of Black Adam until 3 years ago when I was playing one of the games, the Injustice games. Same with Shazam. Didn't know who they were. I still don't. And I think maybe they're bigger in America or overseas, and people are more aware of them. But it was only when those films started to be announced, I was like, who is this? Do I understand? Or have I heard of them before? And I think, right, when the first Shazam came out, comic books were hot. There was no sort of fatigue back then, and I'm saying it too. There's a severe amount of sort of comic book fatigue, and I think it's put down because the films are made now not with an overarching story for that said film, but they're trying to set up about 5 or 6 different plot lines for other films.
Well, in defense for this film, that doesn't do that. I mean, that's trying to do its own little thing. I said at the time when we reviewed Shazam, when it was out in cinemas, what I liked about the film and kind of what it does with the Shazam family is that it didn't need to introduce Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman. It has enough of its own characters to kind of do everything at once. But then when you see them kind of trying to do that in this film, you suddenly see that, oh, well, actually, you then dilute everything, and then it means your central character isn't really given that much to do. Like, the central thrust for Billy's character is that he can see his family falling apart. His oldest foster sister, Mary, is 18. She's considering going to college and moving away. His young friend Freddie, who I have to say, I do love Adam Brody, as his older self, is kind of going off and wants to do his own thing. He doesn't necessarily want to go and be part of the Shazam family. So there is things there, and I do like the first film. I like the fact that it's almost rivaling, and they do make a joke about it. It's almost rivaling the Fast and Furious franchise for its love of family, but it's unorthodox family. It's not family by blood. It's adopted family, which I think is a nice little thing, and the importance of guardians and adopted parents and things like that, and foster parents. There's a little bit of LGBTQ plus representation. One of the characters, and in fairness, they don't shy away from it. One of the characters comes out as gay, and they don't treat. I mean, it's one of the few minutes I actually noted down in my own notes, which I don't have. That there's a sequence where a character goes, "I'm gay," and literally everyone else goes, "Well, yeah, well, that's fine, that's grand." It's like, but we've got to save the world now. That's not what we're talking about. Yeah. There's all little bits of positives. I think David F. Sandberg, who is a horror filmmaker, he knows kind of what to do with set pieces. I come back to, and I'm repeating myself, it's the stuff that connects them all together. It's not that interesting, and it's generic, and it's just copy, paste, repeat. Yeah. And it's the performers themselves. Like, I know we mentioned this earlier on, but surely, you must have took some glee from Helen Mirren in this. Seeing Helen Mirren as a supervillain kicking ass. She holds her own against Shazam. She's clearly having a ball. And I mean, we've seen her in the Fast and Furious franchise as well. Yeah. I mean, I love that Helen Mirren still, for an actor her age, she's getting these roles. She's clearly relishing it. Lucy Liu, the same, because I can't think of the last really big blockbuster in the big cinema. I've seen Lucy Liu in a couple of things kind of left field of late, but not front and centre in a big blockbuster.
No, not. Now you mention that, me neither. And I was reading in my research for this that they both signed up in early 2021, which would be as we were starting to come out of the pandemic. So maybe there wasn't as many big opportunities out there, and they thought, now is our chance to get on board, like Pierce Brosnan and Black Adam, get involved, get ourselves toys made of ourselves, and get that DC or Marvel money. But this film,
the comic book money.
And then they can do the Comic Cons. They can go around in 20 years whenever people have forgotten all about them.
No one's ever going to forget Lucy Liu. No one's ever going to forget Helen Mirren.
But she's ageless. She is absolutely timeless. But as you said about this film, it felt like that awful X-Men film that we watched, where, what was it, the last one, Phoenix?
Yeah.
Where it was just, they ran out of contract. They just needed to make the film for the film's sake. Everyone else in the film has moved on to better things. And
you can actually see Michael Fassbender's dead eyes in that film.
Yeah. Checking his watch.
Where he's just like, I don't care. This is paying for a holiday for me and Alicia to go off on a nice little holiday somewhere. Yeah. That's why.
That's what that, because they're going to, it's the sort of law of diminishing returns. Every film is going to earn less unless it's an Avengers or something that ties everything together. But I think with DC there just isn't, and there has never been that magic to get a mass following like Marvel has done.
Although, coming back to, the first film had charm. The first film had magic, and I don't know, it's only been, 4 years since the first one was out in 2019, might have been 2020 here, so it's only kind of 3 years. And maybe it just says so much. Like, we think of Scream, which I know we're going to be reviewing Scream 6, because we're going to be reviewing in an upcoming episode. Maybe that's what it's got working for it, and the fact that it's like, right, Scream 6 has just been released, whether reviews are positive or not, next one's out next year. So you don't have that time to kind of forget these characters. Maybe too much time has passed. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe, as you said, it's come back to that sense of fatigue. Maybe it's just that sense of people are kind of saying, well, this is the end of one kind of style, for one kind of approach from DC. These characters will be dropped going forward, because we don't know what's going to happen at this stage. I know there's kind of post-credit stings, but even the post-credit sting, normally we keep that for the post-credits of this pod, but even here, I mean, it doesn't do very much. It kind of just takes a pop at the Avengers. It's like, that's idea. The Avengers, yeah, that's a catchy name. You're like, oh, fuck off. Fuck off, Zachary Levi. Just go back.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Let's come back to Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
Because this is another thing. And it's, at the minute, as we say, MCU, when a character properly dies, or there's all a sense of like, I know we've had the vanishing or whatever they call the blip in the MCU with the click of Thanos' fingers. I just did that little click just for you, Darren. And I almost fucked up the click. It's like, ugh. But where death seemed to matter. I know there's been a lot of rumours with the upcoming Avengers movies, so we can't talk. By the time this is out, it might be all completely nonsense. Those films are out. But that characters like Tony Stark and Captain America, the original Captain America, may be coming back for the big Avengers movies because we have the whole multiverse concept. But this is a big thing I have with DC. At the minute, anyway, characters' death don't matter.
No.
So we've had Superman dying. I mean, it just shows you how much faith DC had in Al Henry's Superman. They bring him for a Man of Steel. It's great. It's like, it's okay. I enjoyed it. Then we have Batman versus Superman. He did. He did. And I said at the time, going, I wish I felt something for that sacrifice. Because it's a great big scene. You've got a score by Hans Zimmer. And he dies. And then he's brought back. Mm-hmm. In this film, we see a great big sacrifice by Shazam's character. And not even 10 minutes has passed. And they're like, oh yeah, we can bring him back. And who brings him back, Darren?
Yeah, Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot. See, this thing, I say Gal Gadot.
Oh, I say Gal Gadot.
Tomato. Listeners, email in and tell us, is it Gadot or Gadot? Because I think it's Gadot, because I think Gadot makes her sound much more French. And she's is really... Yeah, so I don't know. Gal, if you're listening, if I've got it right, phone me.
We've offended so many people tonight on this.
That's all right. Fuck it.
Digimon, Hanso, Gal Gadot, and Lucy Liu.
I'll Dijon, It's all right, mate. Calm down. But Jen, coming back, I know we've alluded to this, so it's not a spoiler now in this pod. We've said that Gal Gadot is back, comes back. I find that to be the most pointless cameo I can think of in a long time. It's like, as I said, we have the sacrifice from Shazam. He stops Lucy Liu from whatever it is she wants to do. She wants to plant this weird tree that's going to cause chaos and destruction for humanity. I come back to previous point. What do you do the next day?
Yeah.
Well, I've always, this is why I like villains like Michael Keaton's Vulture in Spider-Man Far From Home. No, in Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man Homecoming. There we go, I got it in the end. He's not out to change the world. He's not out to rule the world. He's out to, look after his own family and get enough money. That's why I like Kingpin in Daredevil. That's that sense. He doesn't want to rule the world. He just wants to be the top dog in Hell's Kitchen. So Lucy Liu's character, she does this stuff. There's this weird kind of dome-esque thing that she creates so that no one can get in, can get out. And then they use that, and then there's the untimely death of Shazam 5 minutes later.
Sorry to talk over you, but in the research...
How dare you? As if I'd ever do such a thing.
I wanted to flag this in because they've credited the Simpsons movie for the reasoning behind the dome. They took inspiration from the Simpsons movie for the dome.
What's wrong with that?
So they're boasting about that, but sorry to interrupt.
No, you're perfectly fine. You're sounding like
I got angry there.
Yeah. What have you got against the Simpsons movie?
No, I love the Simpsons movie, but it's a cartoon premise that was done in 2007. Why are they referencing that? I don't know.
Well, I just imagine you sitting in your seat a bit like Butters in South Park going, Simpsons did it. Simpsons did it. Yeah. Okay. I don't actually. It's not Butters. It's whatever. What's Professor Chaos's sidekick?
Oh,
listeners, email in if you know. There we go.
He's like the comedian guy, is he? No,
is it General? It's General something.
Oh,
this whole podcast just staggers to a complete stop as Jim does a reference. But yeah, Simpsons did it. Okay, I never thought of that actually. Yeah. I just thought it's like, okay, you're doing this weird dome thing. Nothing can get out. And you know what I've realised? We haven't even got this podcast so far is, Darren, I've actually meant to ask you this at the start of the pod, but Darren, can you taste the rainbow?
Yeah. What was that about? What was? See, I completely forgot about that, because when you go to see this film, if you decide to watch it and you see that house scene for the first time, there's just so much going on. The characters are running. It's like that scene in Home Alone, you know, and they're all they're eating the pizza and everything's. It's chaos, but they're actually talking to each other, and there's so much going on. There's a guy running around with Skittles in our pockets. There's unicorns. There's everything, and I just found it very overwhelming from the way the movie started to then take you to that scene.
I didn't mind that, because as you said, like, that's kind of a nod possibly to Home Alone if they're going to reference the Simpsons movie. But I guess that is, in that kind of family environment, that's what would happen. Yeah. It's not like a situation where someone will stop and go, I'm sorry, what did you say, younger sister? Oh, I'm sorry to talk over you. It's not the Banterflix podcast. We will wait for each other to speak. Yeah. I thought it was fine, but then, because I had read somewhere, like, is this a movie or is this a 2-hour advertisement for Skittles? And I was like going, okay, there's one nod to Skittles. Where are they getting this from? And then, of course, one of the characters, let me get her name again. So Darla. So one of the character, Darla, she loves, as you mentioned, she loves unicorns. And unicorns, for some bizarre reason, Darren, you'd almost think that writers might have been lazy. Like, they're the only things that the aforementioned monsters that Lucy Liu has set upon Chicago, they're the only things they're feared of. And the only thing is, unicorns aren't like what we see. They're not pretty and white. They're dark and sinister. But the only thing that can make them our friends is ambrosia. Now, I automatically thought of like, oh, okay, so maybe they're like kind of like ambrosia, kind of custard or thing. No, of course, it's all reference back to kind of Greek mythology. But the closest we get to that is Skittles. Yeah. And what makes me wonder, how much I don't know who makes Skittles, how much did they pay? Yeah. You know, could it have been like, oh, Mars Bar? That's the closest thing we have to ambrosia, because they're going to pay. Yeah. I find that really weird. Although my lovely wife, who enjoyed the film much more than I did say, she has said to me since we watched the film together, and she liked it, but she didn't love it. But she did say to me, she's like, every so often she go, Jim, taste the motherfucking rainbow. She does love that. Taste the motherfucking rainbow, Darren.
That's
the line in the movie, and it says a lot about the film when that's all you've kind of got.
Yeah, that's big Skittles. That's that evil corporation, big Skittles.
But yeah, so we kind of started talking about Gal Gadot. We then sidetracked because I wanted to bring in Skittles, generally, because we'll probably start to bring things to pull things together. Your thoughts on that cameo? I was underwhelmed because it just felt like, okay, we've had a reference to her earlier on. We had the kind of cameo that wasn't a cameo, and now here she is. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, because they sort of teased it earlier in the film, and then by the end, it was like, right, you've teased this before, and now you're actually giving us to see Gal Gadot. And it's not even a spoiler, because I've seen people saying that she's actually in the trailer for the film.
Oh, I haven't, because I've stayed away from the trailer.
Yeah, me too. But apparently she's in the trailer, so it's not really a spoiler. So I can imagine watching the trailer and then getting even more annoyed throughout the film. But
do you think that'll be like the people that watched like the Jurassic World sequel and were waiting the whole way through the film only for Jeff Goldblum to appear in the final moments of the film to go, oh, here I am. Okay, so sorry, we were talking about Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
We were talking about So I didn't realise that she was in the trailer.
Yeah.
And I think it's really weird for her to be in the trailer, because a bit like I've mentioned with Jeff Goldblum, she literally is in the closing moments of the film. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know then, is that marketing men and women trying to sell their soul to get us to buy their ticket and hope, well, you'll see Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
It's setting stuff up. Hey guys, Wonder Woman's going to be in this film. Come on down and watch it. And you're like, oh, we watched the whole way through and we've seen that weird cameo that made me feel conflicted. It's like, am I attracted to him as Wonder Woman? Am I not? Have I had dreams like that? Probably. And then we see her kind of popping up at the end. And then it's weird because we have Billy's character going, I'm going to be 18 soon. Call me.
Yeah. And let's not talk. There's a 6,000-year-old woman going out with a 16-year-old boy. So that's not weird either. So but they sort of dance around that situation. But
well, they do, but they also then address it because the foster mum kind of goes, I don't know if I'm okay with that.
Yeah. But he's underage.
it's fine because she just happened to be that way, but she's 6,000. But then, spoiler, she's turned mortal by the end.
Yeah.
So
the one thing I want to ask all
Darren's questions,
all comic book producers, directors, studios getting behind this. Surely we've ran out of old gods now. Why can't we just make new ones? We always go back to like Greek gods.
So come
Roman
up with a
gods.
new god for me now, Darren. Right on the spot now. Come up with a new god.
I can't say. I can't think of a god.
There you go. That's how much to
TikTok.
thought.
The god of TikTok.
There we go.
Yeah. Have a phone that the Avengers have to come in and fight, and there you go. Kevin Feige, the Marvel universe is saved. And
if that happens, Darren, you get the money.
yeah, there you go. You heard it here first. This is copyrighted, and my idea is patented. So, but they always seem to pull in
Lord
some sort
TikTokus.
Lord TikTok, something that they always seem to
He
bring
will
in.
take hold of you and give you the attention span of a 2-year-old. What was that? I'm sorry. He's taken over the world already.
But it's always, here, we're so lazy in our writing, we can't come up with a new villain. We have to just pull. So the Daughters of Atlas are actually in the Greek mythology.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of okay because that's maybe going to encourage people to look into Greek mythology.
Yeah, but...
So in the space of 2 seconds, I've wrecked your argument.
No.
You just agreed with me. You're just like,
paying?
Jim, yeah.
But who's paying for that? People who like Greek mythology would just be involved in Greek mythology. You don't need to go to a DC film.
Maybe it's a good thing, as we say, the fact that kids might then get into Greek mythology.
Yeah, and they'd probably feel a lot better off for it, I suppose. But
so
I
therefore, again, in the space of 5 minutes, I've wrecked your argument.
You sat me down.
So you don't want Lord TikTokus.
Well, Lord TikTokus would be great. Something new. Why do they always have to pull something from mythology, whether it be Egyptian or Greek or Roman?
Do you know what you are? Do you know who you are, Darren? You're just Barney from How I Met Your Mother. New is always better.
Yeah.
That's who you are.
Yeah.
New is always better. None of this old kind of, we don't want Superman. We want all new characters we've never heard of ever before.
Yeah.
And then nobody will go see it because they don't have any emotional engagement. And then the DC universe will flounder.
It already is. It needs.
That's why James Gunn is here. James Gunn's going to save the day.
We need new gods, and we need.
Well, the thing away looking at that is like, look at something like Peacemaker. Okay, Peacemaker was, I think, he wasn't a James Gunn creation character. Because coming back to what you said earlier on, I didn't pick up on it really, and it's only popped into my head again. You were talking about you didn't really know Shazam, you didn't know Black Adam. Sometimes I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I know we're trying not to compare and contrast. You look at Guardians of the Galaxy, okay, another James Gunn project. I didn't have a clue about the Guardians before I seen the film.
Yep.
Love them. I've never really went out and sought the books, comics, but I love those characters now from that film. And that benefited me. In fact, I didn't know anything about them. I'll counter that and say, there's stuff like the Eternals that Marvel have done that is about as fun as watching, the dishwasher go round. It's as dull as dishwater. No. And I didn't enjoy it, and I'm not tempted. Sometimes it can be a good thing when you don't have that baggage of having, like, look at Superman, where you go, you've so much stuff to pull from, so many iconic comic book runs, comic graphic books, comic book stories, etc. you can pull from. You look at kind of like the death of Superman, which they kind of used in Batman versus Superman, and you get people like me going, well, that's not how it happened. That's not how that worked. Dear DC, I think you will find the character that you are implying is Bizarro, or the implying is Doomsday, is more Bizarro. So please correct this in your future films. Hashtag Superman cancelled, right? And he did get cancelled because we've got a new one coming up. Sometimes it can be good when you don't have that buy. I just come back, the central problem with this, and we will have to pull things together. It isn't the fact that it's not a character that's maybe overly popular. And I know there's a lot of stuff because I think there's a whole thing about Marvel, Captain Marvel, because I think they reference as well, because I think the character started out, he was Captain Marvel. Yep. And then he was kind of you're nodding, so maybe you have much more knowledge of this. So do you want to fill our listeners in?
From research of Captain Marvel from
Wikipedia.
I think there was a whole dispute over the name, and Shazam should have been called Captain Marvel. Even the suit is very similar, something like that. People are going to go mad at me for all this, but yes, that's my understanding of it is that he they then had to change the name to Shazam.
Yeah.
To avoid being called Captain Marvel. And it was something about even the powers are even given the same way, almost when you break it down.
Because there's a whole running joke through this film that we haven't mentioned. I think we'll do this and we'll pull things together, where Shazam doesn't know his superhero name. And like, there's a joke where they kind of talk about, well done, Captain Marvel. And you're like, oh, I get what you're trying to do there. Yeah. I have a question. If Shazam is now called Shazam, how can he ever tell anybody his name without turning back into Billy?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. What happens when Billy grows up as well? What happens when he becomes the age?
Well, I think, are they kind of hinting at that? Because we see the character Grace Caroling Curry, who I'd never really seen before, although I think she's in a couple of the Annabelle, or I think she's in one of the Annabelle prequels. She wasn't playing... In the previous film, she didn't play her older self. All other actors were playing. There was the young cast and the older cast. This time round, it's still the same apart from her. Yeah. She's playing the same character. So, I mean, how does she hide her superhero identity then? If she's literally identical. I don't know how her parents kind of go, or foster parents go, that's her. No. Why is she doing it? I don't know, but maybe it's magic-y, timey-wimey kind of stuff. I don't know, Darren.
A wizard did it. The Simpsons, yeah. It was a wizard.
Al Dijon.
Yeah.
Al Dijon getting about... I don't know. So, here's a key question we've started to ask in this pod. So, the pod's now dubbed More Than Pixels on a Screen. I said about when we talked about Ant-Man, that it was nothing more than pixels on a screen for me. It was there, I watched it, I didn't take anything from it, and I struggled to remember it. Throughout this podcast, I think it says a lot about my thoughts for the film. I was underwhelmed by it, but that sense that you kind of get stuff. You say, oh yeah, that happened. Oh, this stuff. I'm struggling to remember any big, massive moments. Any key that I'll take. I would probably say in about a year and a half, if this is on ITV, it will more than likely be on ITV2. Yeah. In between, like, the Shawshank Redemption and, I don't know, another movie like Jaws, I don't know, something that'll be on late at night, or Death Wish 5, right? Yeah. There'll be Shazam, Fury of the Gods. I'll go, have I seen this? Have I? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And have I? Oh, yeah, I have seen this. Yeah. So my question to you, Darren, is Shazam, Fury of the Gods, is it more than pixels on a screen?
No. Well, it is pixels that have been done, and a lot of effort has been put in by the people making it, but I just don't think it's memorable. It's just lacking. It's largely forgettable, and even the big stars there will forget that they were ever in that film in 2 years, 3 years.
Well, I can't disagree with you. So I think on that note, we shall wrap up this week's pod. So thank you very much, Darren.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back soon with another episode of More Than Pixels on a Screen. If you've enjoyed what you've listened to, be sure to subscribe. You can check out our complete back catalogue on the website. And as we say, subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. We have our spoiler-fic chat about Scream 6 coming up in a couple of days. So check that out, and thanks for listening. This is a bit rambly, so thanks for listening. We'll be back soon, but for now, until then, goodbye.